Can you break it down for us and tell us what it really means to you? And how does this mindset help you, trying to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, or how it can help someone else?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an approach that we came up with in our business. Really, we looked at the things that are most important, and one, speed is important because the faster you can get things done, the more comfort everybody has in a transaction. If we can get a loan in the mortgage world, and we can get a loan approved and ready for docs a week early, there sure is a lot of comfort that comes to everybody as part of that transaction when they know everything's done.
I'm your host, Vinki Loomba. I'm a real estate investor and a fund manager. And on this show, we go beyond the basics to uncover the real strategies, real stories, and real opportunities to help you build wealth through real estate. And today, I have a very special guest, John Donnelly, with me. Welcome to the Real Estate Wife Show, John.
Thanks for having me, Vinki. I'm really excited to be here. It's going to be a great show.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to your insight. John is the executive director of sales at Service First Mortgage, where he leads a passion for people management, leadership development, and coaching. With a focus on growth and smart financial habits, John empowers professionals across the real estate space by aligning speed, service, and synergy to drive success. And today we'll be discussing today's top mortgage trends. I think one of everybody's favorite topic these days. The mortgage world has been anything but predictable lately. In this episode, we'll be talking about what really is happening in the market right now, from rate shifts to buyer mindset and what could be coming next. John will break it all down for us with his real insight and fresh perspective. So let's dig in today's conversation and explore today's mortgage trends and see what's next for us. But before we get started, John, I would like to kick things off with something really special and personal. Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. It's not a small feat. So tell us, how did you come up with this idea? Because I think you're going in how many months? 6, 8 more weeks, maybe?
In 8 more weeks, I'm climbing. So
That's
June.
awesome.
So it kind of started last April. So a year ago, I read a book called The 12-Hour Walk,
Mhm.
and it challenges you to walk out your front door and just walk for 12 hours with no headphones, no audiobooks, and just walk at whatever pace you want. You don't have to go as far. It's more like a kind of like a meditation. And so I took it on. I walked out my front door one day and I ended up walking 30 miles in a day, which I've never done anything like that before. It was unbelievable. And during that walk, I took 17 pages of notes. And the things I was thinking about were, I had a significant birthday coming up. What am I going to do that's kind of epic? That like challenges me and proves to myself I still got it. I'm turning 50. That was my big number. And so I had this, idea from 10 years ago that is in the back of my brain from a message I heard from Bob Goff. And he shared this message in a book called Love Does about hiking Kilimanjaro. And I was like, that's it. That's the thing I need to do. And so I committed to it. I found somebody that could guide me up it. And I put together a plan and I started working out. And I cast this vision out there of what it's going to be like. And it's just pulling me toward this goal of it's changing my life, to be honest. I eat healthier, I work out more, I feel better, I sleep better, and it's contagious to all the people around me. So, I'm 8 weeks away from climbing this mountain, and I'm going with a friend of mine who's a realtor. Actually, we've been friends and partners for years. And so, hopefully it's great and easy, and we make it and everything's fine. But I got a feeling we're gonna have some challenges, and there's gonna be some story that comes out of this, and it's gonna be exciting. So that's kind of my quick story of how I decided to hike Kilimanjaro and what I'm doing to prepare for it. So
Wow. First of all, congratulations for taking the step. Even thinking about it, is just like a big thing for a lot of people to climb a mountain like that. Or, I have heard stories of people climbing the Mount Everest, even, and then there's like multiple mountains people do that. And it's not like that they just wanted to climb it just for the sake of climbing. I think it's much more than that because it reshapes you, it redefines you. So I'm going to go back to your story where you said you read this book and all of a sudden you kind of unplugged yourself 100%. And it's very important to unplug, for all the devices that we have. We're completely wired, unplugging yourself. And then you walk 30 miles in one day.
yes.
30 miles, without having any prior practice or any walking or anything like that. So what was that realization at that point that you could do much more than you could think, than your physical abilities that you were thinking before you started walking?
Yeah, I think the first thought I had was I've only ever ran a 5K, but I've been athletic. I do a lot of sports, but I've never ran a far distance. And there was a point in the day I was about 10 miles in, and it's pretty early. And I was like, I could probably make a marathon. How cool would that be? And so I just kept walking, kind of funny. I just kept going. And I ended up at 30 miles, 60,000 steps. And it did prove to me exactly what you said. Imagine what else I could do. It almost challenged me in a sense. Like, if I could go 30 miles, how far else could I go? What else could I do? And in my mind, my age was kind of limiting me. And now I feel like it doesn't limit me at all. Anything's possible. And maybe just because I hadn't challenged that thought. But it gave me more confidence than I've ever had. And then the shift I had from eating healthier, now working out 3 times a week, walking more. It's just crazy how every day I think about I'm going up Kilimanjaro. I'm worried about when it's over, to be honest, because then what's going to keep pulling me. But I think that casting a big vision that's so compelling that pulls you at it, it matters in your business as much as in your personal life too. If you think about it that way, I know exactly where I'm going and it's easy. I don't even think about my plan anymore. I just wake up and I do it. I'm on autopilot. And so I'll be ready. I'll be 100% ready for this climb.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. And I think you put it very well. All the limitations are in the mind,
Hmm.
right? So once you let that go, once you start realizing your patterns that why, like you said, very well word, you use one word and they said thought, my thought. So we are not our thoughts, right? We are way more than our thought. So one thought can make you or break you, basically, and that could be very limiting thought that, we just kind of get into our cocoon and we think, okay, this is it, this is we are. Or we could be just like you, like, could be like much more, or just like, reading one book, all of a sudden, it's like a huge mind shift right there, walking 30 miles and all of a sudden deciding, okay, let me go climb the Mount Kilimanjaro. This is like very big thing. So I just wanted to hear your story when you get back, how it's going to reshape you, how it's going to redefine you, because there's going to be multi more patterns or limitations you're going to be breaking in this journey all along.
Yeah,
So
I think so. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm opening my mind to all the possibilities. Then just take it all in. No limits for me. So you're
wow.
right.
So share with us, since you did the 30 miles and all of a sudden you realize that physically too, you can do much more. Your age, your physique, or anything, there's no limitation like that. It's all in the mind. So how did it change for you at work, your leadership style, the way you were working, how things started playing out for you? Share with us.
Yeah, I think I started talking about it, and I became interesting. And I've always kind of been one to read a lot of books and tell stories and that type of thing. But this story is different because it's personal and it's something I'm doing and not somebody else's story. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that I always believe as a leader, we need to fill our cup up so much that it pours out into everybody else. So the idea is self-leadership is first, right? You got to take care of yourself and lead yourself, and then it carries over in everybody else. And so for this, I've had many people say, hey, tell me about this. I might be interested. And then I send them all the details and the 20 pages that it's going to take and of all the information. People are like, wow, that's a lot. That's a big commitment. I don't think I can do it right now. I'm like, you could if you really commit to it. You could do anything you want if you really commit to it, but you have to decide what's the most important, you know? And so, you know, it kind of leads into these conversations of like, if you're not happy with the success you're having in your career or in your personal life or whatever, you've got to make that commitment and just kind of go all in. And that's what I did. I just didn't even think about it. I was like, I'm doing this no matter what. And that mind shift is kind of like it's it's like a magnet. People are coming at me and they want a piece of that energy that I have where I'm going at that mountain and they know that there's no way on earth I'm giving up until I get to the top of that thing. And so we got to take that little lesson and tie it into our work. We need it. Like I run sales for a mortgage company. It's a hard freaking business right now. You know, we're challenged right now. So we're climbing mountains every day in our work. And so we've got to be all in and we've got to really take it serious to get to the top, you know.
That's true. And then you said a couple things I'm going to highlight. You say you need to commit to it. You need to change yourself. And then this mind shift is going to happen. And these are all very important things. You know, people don't like to change. People are comfortable with their mindset wherever they are because they don't want it to challenge the status quo. And that's where there's no commitment because
Yeah.
they don't want to change. So you did all that. So was it like just one a switch that got flipped, or it's like a kind of work over the course of time?
It kind of a little bit was one flip switch. It was the idea of I'm turning this age. I need to do something significant. What is it going to be that I'm going to commit to? And just pick it. Like, don't overthink it, right? I had another kind of breakthrough thought, if you will, that goes along with this. I
Mm-hmm.
started thinking about, you know, this challenge of Kilimanjaro, but I was like, who am I trying to be in my work? Like, what do I want to be like? And this is my other kind of big takeaway out of this hike, or if you will, this walk. And so I started thinking, there's certain people in the world that I kind of look up to. I want to be like, or I want to be like them. Tony Robbins is a person that goes way back in the beginning. I used to listen to his cassette tapes that my mom had bought, like the unlimited power ones, you know, in the 80s or whatever. And so there's certain people that I'm thinking about. And so I came up with this idea. It's a little bit from a couple of books, but who are the 10 people I want to model myself after? And how can I take just little pieces of their things and kind of make this board of directors in my head? So it's kind of goofy, but I had these 10 people, you know, if I could sit down and draw them all. And then I started thinking, like, what would they tell me? You know, what advice would they give to me? This was a long walk, mind you. You think about some crazy stuff. And so, you know, I started thinking, what would Tony Robbins say to me, or John Wooden, or like certain people? And I came up with this one theme. What I'm trying to become is a class act. I want people to describe me as being a class act. And to me, being a class act means I'm professional, I'm on time, I'm well spoken, I'm prepared, you know, all the things that go into that. Does it mean I'm that always? No, but I'm trying to become that. And in my mind, I have this board of directors and they're guiding me. So sometimes when I get off track, I can sit back and think about that. And what would these people tell me? And how would they handle themselves? And how do I model my behaviors after their behaviors to become better, to become known as a class act? And I think ultimately, if someday without solicitation, somebody says, John's a class act, man, I think I won. Like, that's it. I nailed it. I think I've got some work to do still to get there, but that's something that is kind of interesting, a different way of thinking that came out of this long walk. You know, it's another thing.
I totally resonate with them. And I really like your mindset at this point. And then it's a continuous journey. It's just like, you know, it's self-development journey. You're working on yourself. And it's like you're just breaking all the old patterns and just creating something new for yourself. And it's a constant effort. It's not like one time you do it and say, okay, forget it, because otherwise you're going to fall back into the same pattern again. And I love your board of directors, because everybody should have that. Because
Yeah.
you look up to something. And the other great thing that you said, you have created a vision for yourself, the new version of yourself. And I don't see any hurdles or any challenges. I think you'll make it there because you're constantly working towards that. That's the key right there, finding your future address, knowing your present, and then getting that GPS going. And that's what you're doing.
Yes.
You started your little board committee there to guide you to
I
get
think
there.
so. I don't think I was ready for this kind of thought or this 12-hour walk a couple of years ago because the market was hot. For me, it was good, right? Even in the pandemic, there was a lot of things, but in mortgage and real estate and all that, we were busy. And so I probably wouldn't have had the same thoughts if I were to have done this walk a couple of years before. But this time, you're right. I'm reinventing myself in a different way because I need to evolve with the changes that are going on in the market. And I didn't even realize to what level I needed to, but it all kind of started coming out of me. Things need to change and I need to get better and I need to be open to new things in my life. And that's not just personal, but it's at work too,
That's
in
true.
our jobs. So
That's true. And then everything is linked, believe me or not, whether you're working on the personal development or you're working at, because all is gonna play out right. Because the thing is, if your work is so chaotic, you're not finding time for yourself, that's not good either because there's no progress. Because you're kind of stuck at one place. So the only way you're gonna get out of that feeling of stuckness is just when you are having some space in your mind to be more creative. And I read in your bio, you talk about S3, speed, service, and synergy. Can you break it down for us and tell us what it really means to you? And how does this mindset help you, trying to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, or how it can help someone else?
yeah, I think it's kind of an approach that we came up with in our business. Really, we looked at the things that are most important, and one, speed is important because the faster you can get things done, the more comfort everybody has in a transaction. If we can get a loan in mortgage world and we can get a loan approved and ready for docs a week early, there sure is a lot of comfort that comes to everybody as part of that transaction when they know everything's done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so speed isn't just about going fast and making people happy. It's about making it calm and keeping the transaction, focused on the closing and the other things and not on wondering if they're going to get their financing, And so that's something that we talk about that's important. Service is in a sense like we want to give updates and tell people what's going on and share with them in the process before they have to ask. We have to put systems in place to deliver a service level that's a little bit better than what the expectations are. And if you do that, your business keeps growing and evolving. And then in synergy, we all have to work together. And so for us, synergy is a little bit, it's obvious external synergy with realtors and title companies and appraisers and all that. But internally, we built a system that everybody can do their job at the same time inside our system if we have to go fast. If you think about all the three things, so we could review somebody's documents, approve a loan, draw closing documents, all right there at the same time if we need to. So synergy is really important for us to all work together and be on the same page. So when we looked at what's the most important things to focus on during a transaction to give the best service we can, kind of in our name, service first. That's just kind of how we came to the 28 years of doing business. We kind of came to the speed, service, and synergy, or the power of S3 is the way we do it, if you will.
Right. So let's shift gears here a little bit, let's look at our mortgage market right now. I know it has been a roller coaster. So what's the current climate, how is different just about a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, if you think current climate in the last week, mortgage rates are extremely volatile.
Mhm.
There's tariff talks going on. We don't know what that means. The stock market's bouncing all over the place. The treasury's unpredictable. Normally we can kind of gauge these indicators mean rates are going to go this way. All that's off the table right now. So it's
Mhm.
pretty wild. You see more inventory available than there has been in the last few years. It's still a pretty good normal level. I don't think there's too many houses and prices are going to drop a lot. I don't necessarily think that. But I do think that, buyers are a little bit hesitant right now because of all the uncertainty. And
Mhm.
so I would say when there's uncertainty, that creates opportunity. If a
It
buyer
does.
is a little bit hesitant, then a seller is a little bit hesitant also. That means
Mhm.
if they got an offer that's maybe a little bit lower, you might could snag it real quick from them. And they may not be willing to be that flexible in a couple months when things calm down. So, if you're in the market to buy, lean into these opportunities right now and see, like, make that offer just a little bit lower, see what that seller is willing to do, and you go in with a little bit of confidence. You might be surprised at what happens. I've seen some sellers paying some closing costs and coming off their price in a way that you wouldn't have seen 6 months ago, 3 months ago. And it does that mean it's going to continue? I don't personally think so. We'll see. But I think just the uncertainty of this moment in time is creating that opportunity. I do think that there's stability ahead. I don't know that rates are going to come down to 5% or anything like that, nothing crazy like that. But I think they're going to kind of stay in a range over time, and people are used to that range now. And so if you're in the market to buy or sell, you just got to get out there and go for it. And you'll see that people are willing to work with you in all different ways. Price points, there's inventory available. If you're a seller, be a little bit flexible because you're going to be able to be flexible on a new buy. I wouldn't say sit back and wait, because if rates come down a little bit and it gets busy, all those opportunities are going to go away and you're just going to start competing again. And so the market will shift one more time.
But I think you said it perfectly fine, but I think there's so much uncertainty in the market. It's very hard for people to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you are looking at the
Yes.
single family or you're looking to invest, whatever perspective you have, people are just sitting on the sideline. They just wanted to kind of hold out. They wanted to see which way is going to pan out before they take an action. And this is just like, this is a sentiment I see in the market. And then also I wanted to ask you here, since you're in the mortgage business, are there any mortgage products or financing tools right now that you think that people are not using enough or they do not fully understand?
Yeah, I think we do a lot with our builder partners, and we utilize buy downs right now, and they're a nice tool to have, where the builder will contribute some funds to buy down a rate. If the rate today was 6%, a 2-1 buy down means that your rate's 4% for the first year and 5% the second year. If you do something like that and the seller is willing to pay it, that gives you a lower than market rate for a couple of years to see what the market does. While builders are doing this all day long, and I just started seeing some sellers that are a little bit nervous about the market contribute more money toward, closing costs, or coming off a price. Well, it's really beneficial as a buyer for you to use that money to help with your financing a lot more. It's a lot more beneficial in your payment than it is to just take the money off the sales price. And so use the money that a seller is willing to contribute to buy down your rate. Maybe it's a temporary buy down, or maybe it's a permanent buy down, but buy down that rate, and then you'll get a lower payment for a lot longer period of time. And so I just don't see that being used as much. So lately, even a couple of contracts I saw last week, they came down on the sales price, but they didn't contribute as much for closing costs, which would have been more beneficial for the buyer.
So let's talk about the buy down a little bit over here, because you wanted to buy down the rate, but you're paying some cost upfront, right?
Right.
To buy it down. So, but how much is beneficial for the buyer or for the investor? Excuse me, whatever field you're coming from, to exercise that, because you're paying upfront to lower your rate, but then it's a certain time, and then after that it goes to whatever the rate is. So you kind of end up paying almost the same, if not exactly. What is the main difference, if you can walk us through that?
Yeah, the main difference is if you do a temporary buy down, the money that's being used in the temporary buy down is held in an escrow account. And so basically the sellers pay that money, most scenarios, the sellers put that money in that escrow account, and it's just paying the difference of that interest. You know, so you didn't have to pay it. But if the market turns and rates come down a little bit and you choose to refinance, you actually get a credit of that unused money back. On a permanent buy down, then you're all in. You buy it down today, and let's say the rates come down a year from now, you don't get any money back. You just refinance, right? So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of one of those things. If you think rates will come down a little bit more over time, temporary buy down might be the best tool because it's more flexible and you get a little money back. I don't know if the rates are going to come down. You know, if recession happens and we go into that, rates generally come down on recession. If the economy really gets off kilter, then you know that drives interest rates down historically. Right now, historical information doesn't always pertain to what the market's doing. It's all over the place. It's unpredictable a little bit. I always tell my kids, when everybody's zigging, you zag, because you know I've been in this business since 1997, and there's always the talking heads that say rates are going to go down or rates are going to go up, right? And I'm not even kidding you. When most people say they're going one way, they go the other, and they just don't go the way the masses always think. And so I hate to predict it, but you know, if it were me personally, I'd say they could trickle down a little bit over the next year or two. Just my hunch, because the economy is going to change, and we might be in this recession, and some things are changing. And so I would just know that you know you may have an opportunity to refinance down the road a little bit, but not 2%, 3% rate, not like that. Just a little bit lower, 5%. Maybe if you got in the fives, that'd be great. So manage expectations, right? It took a world pandemic to get rates to 2 to 3%. We don't want that. You know, just a little dip in the economy, we get into the fives. Traditionally, based on what we've seen in over the years, that's possible, but we don't want any of that bad stuff to happen.
Yeah, I know, but we do not know which way is gonna pan out. But with rates still in flux, what are some of the smart ways we can structure financing, and stay flexible, protect cash flow? I'm talking on the investor perspective because I'm an investor. So what other strategies can we use?
I would say looking at all of, like, if you just structuring a deal, if I was an investor, it still comes back to buy right. You know that, like, you make your money on your purchase, right? If you buy right. Well, buying right now probably means you're going to get a good deal on that purchase. So get that seller to give you some funds, and then get with your mortgage professional and say, okay, I've got the seller contributing this. How can I maximize this? Are you looking for the best, cash flow? Are you going to flip this thing to where you just want to get the balance down? Like, what is your goal? And then how do we maximize that money to make it the best for your investment? And then honestly, if you look at like your insurance costs, insurance is all over the place. I get to see all these different amounts that are coming in. It used to be pretty predictable. You kind of knew what insurance dollar amounts were going to be. It's all over the place right now. Shop your insurance 3 or 4 times. Really ask around, and don't just take that first quote, because you might see thousands of dollars in variation right now, and your deductibles are going to really range from 2 to 5%. Like, it's unbelievable what's going on out there. And if you're an investor, that money matters. Like, that can really kill your cash flow in that also.
So let me ask you this, for the new investors who are entering this game, and what are some of the common pitfalls you have seen, when they're trying to get it financed or refinance? And then how can somebody avoid that? Because you've been in this industry for 28 years, quite a bit of experience right there.
Right. Just because the market shifts doesn't mean that if you buy an investment property, you're going to make money. Yeah, you've got to have a strategy. For a new investor, I would say you've got to have some kind of a document that figures out if you can cash flow this property and set the right expectations going forward. Because I've seen many people getting a property and then all of a sudden they can't rent it for what they thought. They're upside down. They're upset about the investment. They didn't do their homework up front to make sure that the expectations they had were set properly. Sometimes I've seen some investors recently that know what they're doing and know, hey, I'm going to buy this property. I'm going to be upside down for a year or two in my rent, but they also feel confident that that's going to turn on them. A new investor, that might scare the heck out of them, and they're not ready for that. So you've got to know your numbers, and you've got to find somebody that can make sure your numbers are valid. Don't just rely on Google and seeing what you see out on the internet. I would use use a realtor, look at comps, talk to appraisers, like do your homework to make sure the numbers are real that you're seeing. Anyway, that's one thing I see right now as we talk to new investors.
So, what are the exactly trends that you're seeing? Are there shifts in the loan types, down payments, or any approval strategies that kind of worth noticing or watching?
Yeah, if you look at, over the last year, DSCR loans are real popular for investors. The rates, a DSCR loan is kind of a loan that's more treated like a commercial loan, if you will. It's a loan based on the cash flow of a property. It's not based on your credit as an individual like a traditional mortgage is and your income. It's more based on the cash flow of that property. And what I've seen is a lot of non-QM, so non-traditional type lenders are getting pretty aggressive on the interest rate. So some of the DSCR loans are easy to qualify for, and there's a lot less paperwork, and the rates are as good as Fannie Mae rates a lot of times. And so that's an opportunity for somebody that, you have to put a little bit more money down because they're only going to loan generally around up to 75% of the value, somewhere in there. There's different options, but you got to have a little bit more money down than some other options. But it's a great loan option, and that's really evolved in the last year, I would say, to be an easy option that's great for investors, and you can buy multiple properties without limitations or refinance in some cases. So
Right. So, looking ahead, what's one shift or opportunity on the horizon that investor or anybody who's looking for should be prepared for now in order to stay ahead in 2025 and beyond? Because things are shifting drastically, whether you see it or don't see it, because the way market is, we saw the fluctuation in the market was like super crazy, for the past few weeks, So I don't know, it's a lot of uncertainty, like we touched on that earlier. So what do you see in your crystal ball, looking ahead, how it's going to pan out? Any predictions, from your experience in your area, what you are seeing, how people are planning or, setting a stage for themselves or positioning themselves for something better or even worse,
There's a couple of thoughts I have. One is if I was an investor, I would be talking to as many realtors as I could right now, because there's some things going on in that may open up a little bit more opportunity for different investments. Without getting into all the details, there's about 300,000 loans that are held with FHA that have kind of been lingering for the last couple of years, left over from the pandemic, where people are having a hard time making payments and they've been in payment plans. Well, it sounds like they're finally just going to shut that down and say, hey, if you couldn't make it work, we're going to go ahead and take the house and put that on the market. Those people can sell, but if they get foreclosed on, that's some more inventory that will pop up. So, a little bit of inventory may come up. The uncertainty makes sellers and buyers, willing to be more flexible. And there's certain realtors that are out hustling and they're really finding opportunities. And if you position yourself with them, you're going to have a lot of looks. at certain investments. And if you position yourself right, what I see from the mortgage world, and why I say it this way, is that there was this middle road of loan officers that their production was a little better than average, but it wasn't amazingly high. Well, that middle ground of producers has kind of gone away. Either you're not doing very much or you're really killing it in this market. There's like no middle ground. I see it in realtors as well. I do a lot of classes with realtors and spend quite a bit of time with them. And I kind of find that there's a few of them in each class that are just having crazy success. When a lot of people are like, how are they doing it? And what's crazy is when you really peel back the onion and you look at what they're doing, they're not doing anything that special. They're just out hustling everybody else. You know, they're not thinking about all the challenges in the market. They're just calling more people and they're just, you know, working and they're opening opportunities. And it's kind of back to the basics, if you will, of sales 101. You make enough calls, you do enough emails, you know, you stay in front of people, and guess what? Opportunities come your way no matter what the market's doing. And so it's not rocket science in some ways, but if you're an overthinker and you're worried about all the things that may or may not happen, you may not have a lot of success. You know, this is my one little mantra I like to say is 90% of the things that you worry about, they don't come to pass. So don't spend time on those 90% of things, you know.
I like that. And just do it, right? So
Yep.
share one more golden nugget for my audience.
Share what?
I said share one more golden nugget with my audience.
One more golden nugget. They say this is, I don't know if this is golden, but you're a product of the 5 people you hang around most. So take inventory of the people that you spent some time with over the last couple of weeks and make sure those are the right ones, and be honest with yourself and say, are these the people that are going to get me to where I want to be in my life, personally, professionally? Do they have, you know, the right manners? Do they treat me right? Are they pouring into me like I'm pouring into them? Or is it a one way, you know, is it just one way and you always help them? You know, you've got to reassess that once in a while, and your circle changes, you know, and you've got to be willing to let it change sometimes. So
that's true. Yeah, change is the law of nature anyways, you know. And I think we get caught up and never wanted to change because we get into our comfort zone and just feel like, okay, we're comfortable here. Why change or why challenge our status quo, like I was saying earlier? So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer it in 1 word or 1 sentence only. Are you ready?
yep, I'm ready.
Okay. So first question is, what is one of the most important things you have learned in your life? And how did your life change after learning it?
Easy for me is I have to always be learning. And for me, it's books, podcasts, or whatever. I wish I would have been more of a student when I was younger, but just always be learning and have an open mind.
Yeah, I like that. Because always be hungry for something, hungry for knowledge, because that's the way to scale or
That's
grow
right.
or evolve, right? So share one good book, since you read so many books, one of those, and recommend to my audience.
Well, I mean, one great one is the 12-hour walk by Colin O'Brady. You know, I did this walk and I've shared this story, and I've got 6 or 7 people to take the walk and report back. And it's been, you know, it's life-changing for a lot of people. It's a great book. So the 12-hour walk by Colin O'Brady, I could probably recommend 20 other books, but let's focus on that one.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. In 1 word, what does life mean to you?
Family.
I like that. What is your biggest passion?
Family. Can I go twice?
Yes, of
I
course you
think that's what
can.
I focus on the most, right?
That's true. And that's the most important things that people forget, you know, because they're chasing other shiny objects. And the most important thing is right here
Yeah.
beside you all along.
It's probably the relationship with my family. If you want to get real specific, if you say relationship might be it. So the things that matter most are the stories you tell at the end, not the things you have. So those relationships are key.
That's true. So if you could turn back in time and talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself and why?
So if I was starting in the mortgage business, I would own my database much better than I ever have. There's gold in the database. And, early on in my career, I worked it, I changed jobs, I didn't keep up with it. And I see the people that are having the most success today are the ones that have worked their database and own that database over time. So that's the secret to success that I see for a lot of top producers.
Thank you for sharing that. So how can people reach out to you?
For me, I'm big on LinkedIn. That's kind of my place. You can go to LinkedIn/the John Donnelly, or just look me up at John Donnelly. You can go to johndonnelly.com. There's a website there, Donnelly, John Donnelly. That's the best place to find me. So I'd say message me on LinkedIn, and we'll connect on there.
Thanks, John. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for being on my show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Real Estate Vibe Show. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone looking to elevate their real estate investing game. Until next time, stay focused, stay inspired, and keep building your real estate vibe. Thanks again.